Hello, everyone, and welcome to Organizational Change Management. Today, we're going to talk about what is organizational change management and how it can affect your technology adoption. I'm Kathy Kim. I've been in our industry for approximately 23 years. About 6 years ago, I left the corporate life to start my own consulting firm where I help both manufacturers and dealers on their CET journey. I also help additional industries and companies with their overall technology adoption. I really do focus on the marketing technologies and the sales technologies. So that's a little bit about me and what we're going to talk about today. So let's go ahead and get started. I do speak very, very fast. I know that. If there's anything that you want to go over again or you need additional information on, please reach out to me after the session. You'll have my contact information on the final slide. So I would love to talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere. So feel free to reach out if you need any additional information. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? We're really going to focus on what is change management, just kind of a baseline, make sure we're all on the same page. Talk about its key components, what is important about change management, especially when we're talking about technology, how to progress with your change management, the impact that it has on your people, and then we'll do a quick summary slide where we bring it all together. So pretty simple, quick and easy, as long as I go forward, not backwards. Okay, so what is change management and why do we care? I wanted to start with some definitions just so we're all on the same page. We have a good baseline and a good starting point. Change management, organizational change management, you'll often hear it referred to as OCM, is an approach to prepare, support, help individuals, teams, organizations in making organizational change. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Anytime an organization is going through any type of change, a change management process or focus is a great add to help the process move quickly and easily. So how does adoption fit into change management? Adoption is the acceptance and integration of new methods, technologies, or practices by individuals or organizations. So when we're talking about change management, we're really focusing on adoption, right? How to, whatever the change is that we're implementing, how to make sure that that's adopted quickly and easily throughout the organization. So they're very, very intertwined. So why do we care? Why do we care about change management and what it's doing to our organization? There's really two different levels of why. One is what it does to the organization, and the other one is what it does to your team, what it does to your team and your employees. So we're talking about the organizational level. Really, everything boils down to finances, right? Whether you're talking about increase in sales, you're talking about reduced costs. That's really where the high-level organization focuses efforts. If you really boil it down. So the impact on the organization, if we focus on change management and we have a program for that, we see a faster adoption and we see less resistance, which this really does mean that any of your goals that you defined as your project was developed, you're going to see those sooner and more efficiently. So whether that's reduced costs, whether that's reduced errors in your processing, whether that's optimized processes, right? Improving data integrity. Like I said before, all of these really do boil down to a bottom line impact, but it's those goals that you set out in the beginning to achieve. So the impact on employees, really much more emotional of an impact, right? It reduces anxiety, it improves your morale. These are really the softer skills that it really focuses on. It does increase your skill development with your employees, especially if you're talking about like CET and you're developing training programs to really improve their proficiencies and their knowledge base. And as you go through anything, as a team goes through any type of a change, if you do it successfully, you're going to create that camaraderie and that cohesiveness within the team, which really does make it a better working environment. So overall, as a summary for your team, it creates a positive work environment, which improves your employee satisfaction. And it also has creates a team atmosphere, which improves your employee engagement. So those are really the reasons of why we do it. It makes it easier, faster, and we realize the benefits quicker if we focus on change management approach. So there's really some key principles of change. So what do you want to consider when you're thinking about implementing a change throughout your organization? You need to remember that a change it's a process to be enabled. It's not going to be managed. I'm not going to tell you you have to change. I can do that, absolutely. But if I want this to be done effectively, telling you what we're going to change is not going to be as effective as helping you through that change and enabling you to change. Just a different mindset, different approach when you go after this. You want to link any change to your business and performance goals. So when you implement a change or when you think about a change, make sure that you're tying it back to your business goals at an organizational level and your performance goals at an individual level. Build capacity for change. Make sure that this is a strategic imperative within your company, right? This is a component of your company, or it's recognized from your company as something that's very important and is strategic moving forward. That's going to give it the boost that it needs throughout the organization. And remember that all change is an evolutionary process. It's not something that it starts today and it ends tomorrow, right? It's going to be I'm going to use this word a number of times. It's going to be a journey. I know we use that word a lot. I love that word, and I think that it still has a specific time and a place that it should be used. When we're talking about change process, I think it absolutely is a journey, both personally and from an organizational standpoint. It's not something that happens today and stops tomorrow. It is something that evolves over time. When you're talking about change, especially with technology, you do need to look at this from a systemic view of your organization. So you need to look at how how your change or how your new technology and implementation is going to affect subsequent groups within the organization, not just your immediate impact, but also those surrounding you. Like I said before, it's an organizational change and a personal change. So we need to respect both of those components, not just one and forget about the other. So make sure you're looking at it from both aspects. Remember that any change is behavioral, and it's an emotional change. Change, again, from a logical standpoint, I know that I need to change from A to B. That's not the problem. The problem is that last time I went through a change, right, I had some issues, or I didn't understand the technology well enough, and I don't feel that I was terribly successful, or I like what I do today. I don't want it to change, right? It's very emotional. So respect that as you're going through the process. And we're going to talk about that in a lot more detail as we move forward. So there's a lot of different change processes as you look through different approaches to change. I like Kotter as an overall change process. We're going to go through it really quickly, and then I'm just going to point out a couple of things that I think that Kotter doesn't cover that we need to make sure that we include. So Kotter has 8 steps. The first one is highlight the sense of urgency. So that's really defining the need. Why are we making this change? You're going to build the team. When I build the team, we need to have intentional identification of those team members. Change management individuals need to have specific skills in their tool belt to be successful. Define the vision. I say defining the vision is kind of an evolutionary process. You define a high level vision right up at the beginning, right? When we're doing the sense of urgency, you have a high level vision, and then you kind of hone in on it as you develop the team and as team members come on board, you work together to really hone in that vision. We're going to talk about the vision in a little bit more detail in a minute. And share the vision. Share the vision everywhere you can, right? Everybody share the vision as often as you can to as many people as you can. Have a short version, have a longer version, have a short version with some talking points if they ask questions. Make sure you're sharing the vision. That builds excitement. And it helps, repetition helps them digest it too. Encourage people to act, right? Ask them to join the team. Ask them to join this journey. Ask them to join the change. Don't be shy about that. Ask them what their issues are. Ask them what their restrictions are. Why are they hesitant, right? What do they think our problems are going to be? What do they feel our obstacles are going to be? Ask them and then encourage them to join you. Create quick wins. Make sure that you celebrate every win you can find. Right? Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. This not only helps those who are in the change, but it sometimes helps those resistors. It always helps those resistors because they're seeing celebration, they're seeing recognition, they're seeing the project move forward and the benefits of the project. Even if you're not directly telling them, see what we can do, they're seeing it just from being around the celebration and seeing the celebration. So make sure that you're celebrating those quick wins, both to keep up the current energy and the current morale, but also to bring some of those along and give them baby step forward. As you have we call them the laggards or the resistors. Track your process. This is very personal to every project. Build your metrics, track your metrics, report on your metrics, and then build, right? Continue to build and expand both metrics and how you're engaging your technology. And then strengthen your change. When you implement, I'm going to use CET as an example. When you implement CET within your organization, let's say I'm implementing it in the design team. Great. Let's have that process. Let's work through that change management and all that that is. But now let's look at, as we start to see that implementation, let's look at other areas that we can start to impact, right? As this change occurs, what does it do to order entry? What does it do to project management? How can we start feeding information more seamlessly between our teams? So what are the benefits, and how can we leverage that further throughout the organization? So that was Kotter. Every other type of change management or a theory that logic that you're going to see with change management really does encompass those things, and then they'll have a little bit of twist here and there. So another one that I like is really boils it down to 5 steps. The 5 steps are the same as what Kotter is. There's just one that Kotter doesn't specifically call out, and that's developing support. As you move forward with your change, you need to make sure that you have support throughout the organization at different levels to really help engage the project and move it forward. And again, we're going to talk about all of these in a little bit more detail. Pre-work. Before you begin a change, you need to have some things understood about your organization and about your project. So make sure you take a little bit of time and you do this pre-work so you have a better view of what it's going to encompass. So the first thing you need to do is pretty quick and easy. What's your type of change? Is it technology, process, structural? Some changes like CET most likely will impact all 3. I'm going to implement a new technology, which is going to affect my processes, which is potentially going to create some structural changes within my organization. Forces for change. Why are we changing? Right? Understanding why helps you complete both the communications as well as how we're going to execute. So understand what is causing your change. Draft for a vision. We're going to talk about your vision in a second. Gap analysis. Make sure that you have a gap analysis. Understand those areas that are changing. Technology is a really easy one, especially with CET, right? My design team right now has these computers, these systems. This is how we work with the cloud. What do I need to do with CET? CET is going to need a different set of technologies, different computers for my design team, potentially different cloud interaction. So what is that how am I going to bridge that gap? Go from what we have today to what we need tomorrow. Skills is another way. What's the skill of my team today? What does it need to look like as I move towards CET? So understand your gap analysis and make sure that you have them defined. They don't take a serious amount of time, but it does take intentional time. Organizational readiness. This is more of a softer skill. You can do surveys and throw surveys out to the organization, but you really get more of a feel when you have those conversations. Have the conversation with leadership. Have the conversations with those who are actually executing the work. What does it look like? What are their stoppers? And how does that position the organization for this change? Once you understand how the organization's current position and how ready they are to make this change, that's going to help you define a lot of the project complexities as you move forward. All right, so your vision, you guys, a couple of key components about your vision. When you're creating a vision, never, never, never discount where your company is at today, right? They're here for a reason. They've gone through a great journey, some good, some bad, but make sure that you recognize the evolution that your company has gone through to be able to enable you to make this change. So don't discount the journey the company has already been on. But when you talk about the vision, make sure that you're also excited about where you're going to go, right? When you create a vision, make it as clear as you can to actually envision what the future is going to look like. Make it exciting, bold, intriguing, right? And if you can, pull out the desired outcomes, right, in your vision. The couple of words that I didn't put on here, at least one specifically, the envisioning the future should be exciting. It should be new. It should be all of these things, but it also should be just a little bit scary, right? And that's great. That's okay. That just means you're changing. Change is scary. That's okay. You need to respect it. But understand when you create this vision, it will be just a little bit scary for some individuals, and that's just fine. Make sure you're putting the excitement around it and what it's going to do for the organization. So that's the vision. Again, I think the vision evolves. It starts at like a 100,000 foot level, then you come down to 60,000, then you come down to 30,000. So your vision does evolve as you learn and gain more about the project. All right, your organizational change management team. This is not necessarily the people who are receiving the change, but how to identify those people that will help your team, help your OCM change or your adoption. So there's three roles that we're going to talk about, or three categories. You have the change sponsor, the change agent, the change target. They're exactly what they sound like. Change sponsor is going to be more of an executive or leader level that's really advocating for the change, and they're really I'll say your change management backer, right? They're the ones who are going to shout it from the mountaintop. You have a change agent. These are the individuals who are actually executing the change. They're actually facilitating the change. So they are helping the change targets, and then they're communicating with the change sponsors. They're really the ones advocating and guiding and mentoring. Change target are those individuals who are actually having to change the work they do, right? They're who the ones that have to change. That's your change target. Really straightforward and simple, you guys, not really complex. We do have roles as we're talking about organizational change management. These roles that we're going to talk about, it could be one person, two people, or each role could have its own individual. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But understand, as I go through this, it doesn't mean that an organizational change management team has to have 10 people on it. It can have 2 people on it, and it can change per project, right? So for my CET implementation, I'm going to identify these 2 people to really help guide us through this change. They do need specific skills as we move forward. I'll talk about those, but you can alter it as you move through. So you have your consultative roles, and then you also have your core roles. The consultative roles, again, are those ones that are going to shout it from the mountaintop. They're gonna be your backers from behind, where your core roles are really going to be those who are actively engaged on a daily activity. So for a consultative role, I do have an executive sponsor, right? That's going to be our management. That's going to be the person that reports to the CEO. If they're not the CEO, really something higher up in the organization, they can really help us move this forward from that level. Then we have leadership advisory. This is going to be more of a middle management type of role where they're going to help guide the teams throughout the organization. They are going to work with leadership or executive management. They are going to make sure that everybody's on the same page, but their role really is to guide the teams. Then you have human resources. Human resources is going to be your best friend. They should be able to help you through any type of challenges you have with individuals. They should be able to just mentor you and walk through different approaches. They also, if you do have any issues that you need to look at organizational updates, they can help you with that. Or if you are going to do organizational updates, because this is just an evolutionary process, they can help you with that. So HR should be directly involved with you and mentor you as you go through this project. All right. So we talked about consultative roles. Now we're going to move over to core roles. So you really have your change leader, right? They're going to be the overall program leader. This is going to be a lot of their time of the day is really managing this change, talking to people, communication with individuals, right? They're really going to be the main leader with your change. Then you have your communication. This might be the same person as the lead, depending how your organization works. But communication is really targeted on broader communication, not one-on-one communication. I like to say that it's more of like a corporate announcement, or if I'm doing a broadcast outside of the organization. The one-on-one conversations really are that leader person that needs to come through into the teams and work with individuals one-on-one. So this is more formalized communication. Then you have project leaders. Project leaders are going to be individual components within your project. So I like to use technology as an example. I did my gap analysis. I know that my technology is not working today. The technology I have today it will not work for tomorrow as I implement CET. So I'm going to bring somebody from IT and I'm going to have them help me define what my gap analysis is and then how we're going to get from today to tomorrow and what that looks like. Then they're going to help me lead that project, right? So they will report into me as far as give me updates and statuses on how it goes. But it might only be 5% of their job. right? I would like to see it on their objectives for the year to be able to support and complete this project, but it's not their full-time job. So that's how I would define project leaders. And then you do have your process coordination. In a smaller organization, this absolutely is going to be the team leader or the change management leader that also coordinates when things happen, how they happen, and in what order. This does rely a lot on your team leaders to be able to feed them the information, but then they make sure that everything lines up and all your puzzle pieces are in place. And then finally, you have your performance management. Performance management is those metrics that we talked about in the beginning. We have both organizational and we have individual metrics. So my individual metrics, this is making sure that people are able to hit the metrics that we defined. And if not, why? What do we need to do differently? What do we need to adapt to be able to make sure that we do hit it? Remember, change is not necessarily something that's going to be perfect every time. So if those metrics are often used to identify where we might have a miss. It doesn't mean that the person's not performing. It means that when we defined our project, we may have had a miss on our training, or we may have had a miss in our technology, right? May have had a miss in a component that really is stopping them from being able to hit their metrics. So make sure that you're ready and able to adapt and add or change as needed. That's what the metrics are there to help you define. So those are your roles. Pretty straightforward. We have consultative, we have core, and that's what makes up your entire change management. So whether that's 2 people or whether that's 4 people or 1 person, that's what they're going to need to be able to do. Okay, when I'm talking about a change management individual or individual on a change management team, they're especially the leaders of change management. They need to have specific skills, both soft skills and organizational skills. So yeah, let's just jump right into these. So for a skill for a change management person, I'm going to look at somebody who understands change dynamics. They understand what causes change. They understand that it's a journey for individuals, that everybody's not at the same pace, or you will not have 2 people in the same spot at the same time. In the end, hopefully you'll start to bring people on board and they will implement the change, at least in groups. But in the beginning, when you start about change, it's not consistent. They appreciate diversity. They don't expect everybody to fit into the same box. Your experiences, your histories, your successes, your failures, those all impact your approach to change, every individual. So someone in this role needs to understand and respect that the way I approach change and the way I feel about it is not at all the same way that Linda may feel about it. And she may be very resistant where I'm very accepting. They're an active listener, so they know how to ask questions, they know how to listen, and they know how to apply what that person said into the project, and provide them effective feedback. So they're an active listener and a positive listener. They anticipate and they manage resistance. So when I'm talking to Linda in the elevator coming up to my office and she makes a couple of comments, I'm aware enough to understand that those potentially are red flags that mean that she's going to be a resistor. That's okay. That just means that I need to approach her with a little bit more tender loving care, right? I need to talk to her a little bit more. I need to work with her a little bit more. I need to understand what's causing her resistance so I can help mitigate that. But I understand those red flags. I can see them and I can hear them in a conversation. It might even be down to a tone of something that's said, not the words, but the tone they used. So this person really understands how to digest that and how to manage that. Adaptability, they're willing to change, right? Like I said before, with those metrics, maybe my training didn't hit 100% on. And when I'm looking at my metrics, I'm not hitting what I need. So do I need to do a quick webinar to be able to hit that component that's missing so I can bring my team up to speed a little bit quicker, or we can address that component. Adaptability also could be my vision, right? I think that I want to head over to, way to the right, 300 miles down the road. And I realize as I'm talking to people, that might not be achievable. I might have to come a little bit further to the left and go 100 miles down the road, right? Maybe I'm too big. Maybe I'm too broad. Maybe that's not going to work. So again, being able to adapt your project as you go along and communicate that and get buy-in, right? Okay, so those are your softer skills. Within the corporation, it needs to be somebody that has high credibility. If you're bringing somebody in from the outside to help as a contract resource, that's fine. Just make sure they have the experience that they can leverage within your organization. And when they talk to people, people understand, okay, they've done this, they've been through this. They can connect with me. They know where I'm at. So high credibility, whether that's internal within your organization or external. They understand power and influence. They understand why we have to have the executives on board. They understand why we need that specific individual deep within that team. They understand that they hold a lot of weight. And when they say 3 words, people listen, right? So understanding and identifying the power and influence from different individuals. They can manage multiple tasks. You've heard that, right? Through everything that I've talked about, there's so many different tasks within change management. They need to be able to manage all of them. Systemic thinker, they need to be able to understand the impacts that they have throughout the organization. So if I'm implementing CET, again, we talked about this, it's not just going to affect my design team, but it's going to affect my project management. If I'm in a manufacturer, it's not going to just impact my data development team, but it's going to potentially impact engineering, right? Because now I'm going to need different information at a different time from them to be able to create my content within CET. So understand that it does have impacts throughout the organization, and this person needs to be able to see how that threads throughout. And a strong communicator, being able to share with people at the right level. I'm not going to share my same updates to the executive team that I'm going to share with the person who's implementing the change. The person who's implementing the change has a lot more detailed questions than the executive team does, right? They want to know, how are my people being impacted? Are they good with it? What's the mentality of the teams? And how's this going to affect my bottom line? Is this going to be costs up front? When am I going to start to recoup some of my investment? That's the kind of communication they want to know. Are we on time? Are we late? Are we changing our approach? They understand we have to change sometimes, so they just want to know when, how, and why. So again, adapting your communication. A strong communicator has to be able to adapt or to communicate at all levels. All right, so a little bit more about communication. When we talk about communication in my world, there's really 2 different levels or 2 different approaches. One is within my corporate walls and one is external. If I'm looking as a manufacturer, I'm going to say within my corporate walls are my employees, right? Anybody who basically receives a paycheck from my company. External to my organization is going to be my dealerships, right? Whether you're an aligned dealer or whether you're an open line dealer, you should be effective. I may communicate with you different ways, but you still are considered external to within my organization. When I'm talking about internal within my organization, for change management, face-to-face is always the best option. And when I say face-to-face, it could be virtual. But really doing the one-on-one conversations or with small groups where you can receive feedback and you can engage with the individual. So you can throw something out there, you can hear their responses, you can address their responses, whether they're positive or negative, and you can really gain momentum, both in mitigating any of the issues they have or some of the issues they have, taking issues back and researching them potentially and responding to them, or taking on the positives that you get, right? And really building those into your project so you understand what shouldn't change and what they're excited about. And then if you're not going to do face-to-face, I would say the broader updates are at a broader level. So when I'm going to update an entire organization, I might have an executive update that happens quarterly. I'm going to see if I can't get that executive team to be able to put 30 seconds in on what does our CET journey look like and where are we at, right? So the whole company hears it. What are their 3 biggest end goals? Why are we doing this? We could do podcasts, right? And post them on the internet so everybody can hear feedback. Maybe I interview somebody who's actually deep in the trenches and we talk through it on a podcast. Or maybe I interview a dealer, right? And talk through what this means for the dealer. When I'm in a manufacturer, we're going to move to external now. When I'm in a manufacturer, don't forget about your dealers. If I'm implementing CET within my organization, that means it's going to directly impact my dealers. How can I help my dealers on this journey? How can I, if they don't have CET today, how can I help them move into CET? How can I guide them? Is there something that I can actually do Could I help fund a little bit of their CET migration? Right? Because it does take a lot of training. It does take some time. Maybe I put a training class together for dealers and have them sign up, but I fund it and allow them to come in, and I do it 3 times, right? So what can I do to help my dealers and bring them along on this journey? Because it's going to be hard for them as well. In the end, it's a win-win, absolutely. But that journey is consuming, especially when they're trying to get bids out every day, right? So whatever you do today to communicate externally, do that tomorrow. Continue it, work with it. If you do website updates, that's great. If they know to come to the web to look for updates. If you do direct emails, or if you have a monthly webinar that they attend, continue to do that and try to get your project into every update that you can. Training. I'm not going to go into a lot of depths about training, you guys. I'm just going to say that training is critical, and you have experts on your side. Configure has expert trainers. You have partners that are expert trainers. Leverage them as much as you possibly can to be able to create your training plan. As you're creating your training, make sure that if you've trained in the past and it's worked well, do it again, right? And then add to it potentially. Leverage your experts to be able to understand how to create your training, but make sure that you're repeating what's worked in the past. Allocate your budget early, right? So it's going to cost you money to train, whether you bring a trainer in or whether you leverage the virtual classes or in-person classes that Configure offers. It's going to cost money. Make sure that the team knows and that budget is allocated early for training. Leverage your professionals. I've already said that. Dedicate the time for the training. Don't underestimate the time, especially with CET, the time that it takes, and respect that. Respect the time that the person is going to put into it, and time when they exit training, they're going to have to practice with it to be able to become proficient. So respect that and respect the process and the time. Manage expectations. This isn't just managing expectations within the team, but outside of the team. So as I send my design team through training, I'm going to take maybe 3 people out of pocket to go to this training. That means that those 3 people are not going to be able to work on, 1-day turnaround bids and renderings and designs. They're going to have ones that take a little bit more time because it's going to take them more time. So manage expectations of sales, that we're going to have just a little bit of a slowdown, right? So make sure that these 3 individuals, they have the longer projects, not the fast turnaround projects. And then plan early. We already talked about that with all of this. Plan early. When you start talking about your projects, start talking about training. When you talk about your approach to training, make sure that you have the controlled impact to workload. Like I said, with sales, make sure that the number of people that you send to training out of the gate, they have a different workload than the others. Be smart about it. If you're a GSA dealer, don't do it during GSA, right? Do it outside of that. So just be smart about when you're going to start the training of the project and how it's going to impact your sales team. Staggered groupings. I am a huge advocate of splitting your design team up, whether that's within a manufacturer or within a dealership, splitting them up and doing in groups. So if I have nine team members, design team members, I send the first 3, they come back and work on it for 3 months. Then I send the next 3. And the first 3 then can mentor the second 3, and then the first 3 go through intermediate training, right? So you stagger your groupings. It has a lower impact on your sales team and your workload or your work results, and it also allows the mentorship type of program to be in place. Intentional placement. Make sure that you're putting somebody in the first group that is a resistor, right? Let the resistor watch others. Let the resistor benefit from learning from others as they start to bring CET within the organization. Don't force them into that first group. Prepare your downstream processes so we understand what the impact is going to be to order entry and how they're going to now receive new orders coming in, or what basically it's going to impact, how it's going to impact them. Start slow and grow. When you plan early, make sure that you're moving forward in a pace that's not rushing it, so you really can make sure that you're gaining the benefit. So when you do hit the ground at the end, you're going, right? Schedule and plan early. We already talked about that. And then customize your training, right? Allow Configura to come in, or allow Ksort or one of our partners to come in and help you customize a training that's specifically for your organization, whether you're a dealer or manufacturer. If you have a team that is completely brand new, beginning training might work. But if you have some maybe that have already had a little bit of experience and they've been through beginner class, 3 years ago, and they need a refresher, maybe we customize a beginner session specifically for you. Again, leverage your experts to be able to help you define that. Metrics, celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. Metrics are quick. They're personalized to your organization. Make sure that you know what you're tracking, track it, and report it. Whether that's a poster within your physical area, or whether it's a metrics dashboard that you put throughout the organization on your intranet site. Make sure you're measuring. This is how you're going to track what's working and what's not working, and you can adapt. So how do I embed the change? So when you create CET and you create it within, so I'm going to go back to a manufacturer. When I add CET into my tools, then how do I, once I have that in, what does it affect other components of the organization? Can it affect specials? Right? Is there something that I can do now with CET that's going to help my specials process? Is there something that I can do within order entry that's now going to help my order entry process by sharing the information that I've developed in CET over into that system as well? Or engineering, is there something that engineering can enter and feed into CET that's just going to help us move along a little bit faster and have a little bit more accurate data? So to do that, we need to be able to have resources, right? We need to be able to have a support system to be able to understand throughout the organization what those impacts are. We need to understand training, not just training for designers, but training for overall CET. We need to reinforce the behaviors and reinforce the positives and the connections that we're able to make within the tool. And then we need to embed it within the organization. So just continue expanding how we share that data and content. So change management is all about people, right? So as we talk about this, I want to make sure that we respect people and where they are in their journey. So remember that people don't always react to change in the same way. So you've all heard the statement that the past doesn't dictate the future. It also doesn't dictate the present. So just because Sally Shore had an issue with our last change and didn't adapt well, doesn't mean that this is going to be the same way this time. So talk to her, right? Understand where she's at, understand what her mindset is for this change specifically. Different people will join your journey at different times. There will be some that join it right up front and they're on board. There will be some that need a little bit more information to be able to jump on. Where there will be others that are laggers and they need a lot of information. They actually need to see it implemented before they really start to move forward with the change. So respect people and where they are in their change availability. I love this graph, you guys. It just explains, or it just reiterates the fact that you will have innovators. Right on the left-hand side, you'll have a few people that are innovators and they're quick to change, they're quick to adapt. You will have a handful of laggards, right? The far right. They'll be, slower to adapt. They need to see it in action before they're actually going to start to move in that direction. Most everybody else is in the middle, but you will have both sides of the graph represented. So just realize that and understand it. That's just how the project will move forward. So when you're talking about people, where do you want to focus your energy when you're trying to bring people along on this change? So you have 3 different areas. You have the directly impacted, right? And you have the indirectly impacted, and you have informed. Those are your 3 different levels of individuals that you're going to want to focus on. Your directly impacted, obviously, are those that are going to be directly impacted by the change. Their daily activities will change. Your indirectly impacted are those that are not directly changed. If I look at a dealership, I'm talking about maybe HR, right? Or if I'm looking at a manufacturer, I'm talking potentially about engineering. So those areas that are not directly impacted on day-to-day, their day-to-day activities won't be changed. And then you have the informed, which are really leadership or executive, where they need to stay informed, they need information, but they don't necessarily need to know the day-to-day activities. All right, so when we're talking about the directly impact, your biggest bang for your buck is going to be to convert your strongest dissenters, right? The ones that have the issues, the ones that have the most challenge with the change that we're impacting, talk to them, listen to them, respect their input, hear what they have to say, digest it, incorporate it, right? Though that's how you bring those dissenters, that's how you bring them along on this journey. You don't discount the people that are already on board. Make sure you're still engaging with them. Make sure you're still having consistent conversations with them. They don't want to be left behind. You'll quickly move them off that early adopter status if you forget about them. So when you communicate with these individuals, make sure you're doing one-on-ones, allowing them to be heard. Team updates are fantastic, really getting in front of the team and giving a 30-second update on where we are on the project and allowing some Q&A to happen. And then ask for input, right? Ask for their engagement, ask for them to come along with the journey, ask what they think, ask what their issues are, really engage them. For those that are indirectly impacted, right, your biggest gain is going to be able to get a few different key individuals really part of your team or on your side so they can do your updates within the teams. They can be your advocate within those supplemental teams. Again, with these, go to their team meeting update and give team updates in team meetings. Kind of a hit as many as you can in one meeting type of approach. Ask for a point person on each individual team. Then you can keep the point people updated and then they can go back and disseminate the information. That's really a good way to stay engaged with the team. Make sure that they're an influential and respected team member within that team. Corporate updates. When you do corporate updates, whether they do monthly or whether quarterly or whether they're even annually, make sure that you're trying to get in front of them, either you or a leader, and give the leader talking points to be able to talk about the project and what the benefits are going to be within the organization and kind of where you are. And then leader updates, right? Make sure all of your leaders are staying updated so they can continually inform their teams and keep their teams up to date as well. And the informed, right? The leadership teams, the executive teams, just make sure that they have their updates in the form in which they want them and the frequency in which they want them. Don't force fit. Adapt to what they're expecting and they want. With all communications, as you guys move forward, make sure that you're meeting them where they are. Don't ask people to come to where you are in your level of understanding for the change. Go to where they are. So if you have somebody who's on board and ready to go, make sure you're communicating with them at that forward point of the change. So if I'm implementing CET, right, and I already have the plan set up, we already have our timeline set up, talk to them about that. Talk to them about what the obstacles they see there. Whereas if you have somebody who's a little bit more of a resistor and they're not there yet. They don't want to see it being implemented. They still have questions about why we're even doing this. Talk to them about that. Engage with them about that and let them have those conversations. They will move along and they will move forward. And if they are repeating the same questions, after the second time you've reviewed them, you can say, as we talked about last time, this is where we are. This is how we have addressed that concern. And this is how we're going to move forward. So you're helping guide them along. You're not discounting them. You've already talked to them and you're repeating what you've agreed to. And now you're starting into the next step. So make sure you meet them where they are in their conversation. When you're talking to individuals, employ a standard communication process. So ask for their input, ask for their feedback, listen to their feedback, digest their feedback, repeat it so you make sure that you're clarifying what you heard is accurate. Apply it, whether that be they have a concern and you can't fix that concern, right? There's nothing that you can do in the process that's going to eliminate that concern. Then bring that concern into your conversations and say, you know what, people have asked about ABC, and incorporate that into your communications moving forward if you can. And that helps that person be heard. It helps them understand that it's being addressed and it's being listened to. And so now maybe they can put a bookmark in that one and they can move forward, right? Review with them, come back and say, okay, you know what? We can't really make any changes. They're going to address this. So we want to make sure that we keep it top of mind as we move forward, right? And that's going to be continually said, that it's being kept top of mind, and you're going to move forward. If there is something that you can do in the process and you can change the process, you can integrate something that's going to help mitigate that issue, then great, incorporate it, right? Bring it in and reference it. Say, you know what? We've had some concerns about this, so we're going to incorporate this and we're going to move forward. Or the best case scenario is one of their concerns. If you make a slight modification, that's going to be a gain for something else. So you can count it as a win. So you've now mitigated their concern and you've created a win. So my point is listen, digest, and don't discount them, right? Respect what they have to say. And you do that all over again. So we start at the bigger level, the broader level, the 100,000 foot, and then we go to 60,000 feet, then we go to 30,000 feet, and we do this process over and over with every individual. It takes time. It really does. And that's really what change management is really making sure that you're focusing on time and doing your due diligence with your individuals. Okay, when I talk to people, I create a chart. And this is just a makeshift chart. It's not actual, but if you look on the left-hand side, those are my names directly impacted. And then at the bottom, you have my groups that are indirectly impacted. Across the top are examples of what I might think is important for this company. So I want to know who's affected or how much they're affected. So if I look at Joe Schmuckatella, he's going to be really affected by this change, like on an hourly basis, potentially. My anticipated response for Joe Schmuckatella is it's going to be bad. When I have an open circle, it means little. When I have a closed circle, it means a lot. So I expect his anticipated response to be poor. That's how I would interpret that. His influence level is high. He has a change tolerance of not great. He's going to be a hard one to get to change. What are his motivators? He has some great motivators, and then I would write in underneath there what the motivators are. So then I would come back down here, right? So I would identify what training group he wants to be in. I would identify what communication group I want him to be in. I put him here as in training group 1. Given how much he's affected, my anticipated response from him, his influence level and his change tolerance, I would really not put him in training group 1. I'd hope for 2. If I can really bring him on board, then I would love to put him in training group 2, but he might be in training group 3 or a subsequent group. He is in the communication group of I, which means he is an individual communicator. So I need to talk with him one-on-ones, make sure that I'm hearing his feedback one-on-one as well as in team meetings. I also might have a G for group, meaning that they're on the team, but they're not necessarily directly impacted on a daily basis. Maybe C is for corporate, right? So just in time, he just needs a corporate level communication. So again, these change by company, and it's what's important to that company as I do my analysis. This is just an example, and it really gives you a guideline how to move forward. So these are just typical causes of resistance. So you know, as you go through this, just check these off. So you understand that resistance to change is natural, right? The limitation of existing systems, that's a big one for people. Lack of an executive commitment. We've already talked about bringing executives on board. Lack of an executive champion, unrealistic expectations. That's really making sure that you're in connection with those individuals. So you make sure that your expectations are aligned with, they're aligned with your expectations and everybody's on the same page. Sometimes it's just a communication gap. They're thinking your expectation is A when really it's B. So a lot of the times that's just a communication issue. So lack of cross-team support, again, bringing IT in to be able to lead your IT component of the project. Great way to make sure that you have cross-functional teams. So just review these, make sure that as you're going through your change, you have all of these addressed and you're aware of each of them. And then how to mitigate resistance when you have those resistors, right? We've already talked about this. Listen and understand objections, respect them. Don't discount them, respect them. Focus on what, not how. What are we going to do? How is going to come later? We know it's going to be a topic. We know we're going to have to talk about it, but let's talk about what we want to do first. Identify and remove barriers. That's really your job. Listen to people, hear what the barriers are, and then either figure out how to remove them, how to work around them, or how to incorporate them. Incorporate individuals' input. We already talked about that. Apply benefits, incorporate their terminology, use their terminology whenever you can. That makes it much more personal to them. Don't be smart about it, right? Use proper terminology, use positive terminology, but make sure if you can leverage their terminology. Make sure they understand that they do have choices, right? They may not be great choices, but they have choices in this process. They could be in training group 1, 2, or 3. There's a choice, right? They don't have to be in training group 1 if they're a resistor. So make sure that you understand you can have choices, not necessarily if I'm going to adopt, but maybe how I'm going to adopt. So show benefits in a real tangible way. How is this going to affect your work? In what way? And articulate that to them and show them if possible. Have somebody come in and do a demo of what works and what doesn't work. Have somebody come in and show a demo of what a specific benefit that you want to highlight. Bring an expert in to be able to show that. Show them what's in the field. Show them what's out there. Show them what's being done. That's a great way to help them identify the benefits. And make sure you celebrate the small wins. We've talked about this, right? Make the personal appeal. Again, ask them to join the change. Define clear training plans. This will help mitigate a big one, right? With them not knowing the tool, not understanding the tool, define those training plans up front and share them. Ask for input, ask what else needs to be done. Overtrain rather than undertrain. Always overtrain rather than undertrain. Incentives, be careful with incentives. Financial incentives, be very careful with financial. They are short-lived. We love financial incentives. Everybody does, but they are short-lived. So if I'm going to give you a $200 bonus because you hit ABC, that's great. You're excited for a week, and then the $200 is spent, and now you're back to where you were. So make sure you're very cautious with financial incentives. Okay. This is our summary, you guys. We are good to go. We have covered everything for change management. Remember to create a solid vision that everybody can use as their North Star. So everybody's moving in the same direction, going towards the same goal. That's your foundation. The other side of it is your people. If you don't have a strong people leader, if you don't have somebody who can bring your people along with you, you're going to struggle with adopting this change, even if you have a strong vision. So those two components have to work together to be able to move your change forward effectively, and being able for you to realize the benefits quickly. In between those two, to be able to bring everything together, the glue that holds everything together is really understanding your corporate readiness and budget. We talked about both of those. Planning and engaging, making sure you're engaging the teams, engaging the people, and planning. Plan for training, plan for communication, plan for all of it. Technology and systems, understanding the limitations, doing your gap analysis, and executing a transition plan. Celebrate and build. So make sure you're celebrating those quick wins. Build and expand your change as you start to see what CET can do within your organization. Expand it into other teams and look at what the benefits are that it can do for specials or for your project management, like we talked about. So expand it. Communication and training, very important. Communication and training are probably one of the most critical. Make sure you're keeping everybody up to date. Make sure they understand the pluses and the minuses of your project, and make sure that your training plan is defined early, executed well, and remember to overtrain rather than undertrain. You can never have too much training, right? Never. So make sure that you're engaging the experts to help you through this process. So that's what I have today, you guys, for change management, for adoption, and how it affects CET and your teams, your organization. So if you guys have any other questions or issues, or if I went too fast, please reach out and let me know. We can walk through anything that you'd like to cover in more depth or detail. Again, like I said in the beginning, I'll talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere. So thank you for your time. I appreciate your attention. Have a great day, you guys.